Hello and welcome to John and James Live. My name is John Hastings with my co-host James Silo and special guest Scott Sacha, AI expert and VP of data and analytics at a tiny little company, isn't it, Scott? Was it turning over revenue 16 billion or something like that?
That's true.
Minuscule.
Yeah.
But how are you today, Scott?
I'm great. And I enjoyed that song intro. It was kind of fun.
That was cool, wasn't it?
It's a
Yeah.
little bit of a
It was
Get
good.
you
vibe.
in the mood.
Yeah.
So Scott, you're based in Atlanta, Georgia. So we're going to start off getting a bit of background about yourself, Scott. I would like
Sure.
to know about what it was like growing up in Atlanta, sort of what your childhood was like, and going to school there.
Yeah. Atlanta's great. I've lived here my whole life. I'm probably one of the few. It's kind of a melting pot. So a lot of people kind of come and go here. I'm lucky. My wife and me are both from here, and we have two kids. I have a daughter that's 16 and a son that's 13. Um, It's great. The thing I love about Atlanta is the weather. You get all four seasons, so you get to enjoy that. So growing up here as a kid, it was, you know, I went to good schools. I had good friends that did things. I think probably that might be relevant to this as we go through and talk about AI because it's kind of part of my life. I grew up. I was dyslexic, and I had what's called auditory and visual memory loss, which is a type of processing disorder. So school was obviously challenging for me, but I used technology to help myself get through it and succeed. And I graduated high school and college with honors because I put that effort in, and uh, I used technology. Really, I mean, that's really what saved my life. To be honest with
Yeah.
you, like I don't
How
think
old
I
was
could
you?
compete with
How old are you,
others
Scott?
without it.
When was you born?
I am 51.
51.
I was born
Okay, so
1974.
you've seen the big transition. I want to know, what was it like growing up in terms of the tech revolution when you was a sort of teenager? What did you understand what the implications were of this? Was your parents
I
thinking,
think my parents didn't, but I did, which was weird because my parents were always willing to like do whatever, but I don't think they were so like we had a computer very early on in the game. We had uh I mean when I went to college I had a word processor because writing wasn't obviously my strong suit, so I had a word processor and things like that. So technology at the time, it's kind of it's just evolved so fast and gotten so good that I struggle to understand how people don't embrace it even more because
yeah,
it really does change lives. Like I would never be on equal footing with people without it. Like it just wouldn't happen.
yeah, it's a huge difference. And what was the difference in, would you say, the educational process at that time, Scott? 'Cause I'm thinking, you obviously know
It
I've
was
got a 16-year-old as well, like you have a
yeah.
daughter. And I'm thinking, what's the difference between the schooling system now to when you went in terms of,
So
fees and what it was like?
it was different because I will say like the disabilities that I have or challenges that I have, uh, schools and teachers weren't as well aware of it. So luckily my parents were, so I was able to get initially I went to some I mean, I think my parents had to like mortgage their house when I was younger because I had to go to a special schools uh to get help. But again, without those, I think my life would have been a totally different path. And also like they just weren't as open to it, right? Like they thought you were making excuses and like
Yeah.
teachers thought you were making I can remember in seventh grade, I had written a paper and like I'd written it like 10 times. And like she kept making me rewrite it, kept making me rewrite it. And finally my mom came in. I was like, look, it's not gonna get any better. Like he's got these disabilities and they're like, no, those are made up. And my mom's like, they're not. He has tests, he has all these things. So it
Yeah.
was interesting to see like over time. And even when I went to college or university, it was challenging. Like the professors didn't want, I mean, I had to really advocate for myself, like really advocate. I mean, to the point where you're picking fights with professors. They're like, no, we're not going to do this for you. We're not going to do that for you. And you're like, but you have to. Like, it's not a choice. And
Yeah.
it was a lot of, I mean, I always say it was the best thing that probably ever happened to me, because all my challenges made me such a stronger person. Like, I have no problem talking to anybody. I have no problem challenging people. I have no problem like finding solutions to problems. I think it made me a better problem solving. So I think it's like what was a negative turned into a superpower for me, is the way I look at it.
That can happen, can't it? I remember I was scared to wear my glasses when I was at school, so I sat at the front
Brutal.
because I couldn't see, but I was hyper concentrating because I was so embarrassed about not being able to see the board.
I mean, kids are
It
brutal, because I
helped.
mean, when I was little, like, obviously it took me a long time to read. It took me a long time to write well. So I got made fun of all the time. I mean, kids are just brutal. You just have to,
Yeah.
I think it's one of those things where you need to just kind of just take it for what it is and own what you have. That's one thing I've always done, is I always own what I have. So like, there's no, you can't make fun of me, because I already make fun of myself, and I already own it. Like, I'll tell
Yeah.
you what my problems are. So, because then I own everything. Like, you don't own the narrative, I do.
You build those coping mechanisms. And where
Yeah.
did you start to excel? Where did you sort of push yourself into the directions? I've read that you found that you was pretty good at maths, but not
Yeah.
necessarily the word side.
Yeah, in high school, I started to notice it. Like, I would take math tests and get 100 on them, and everybody else wouldn't do so well. And so I get really good grades to the point where, and sometimes the teacher would just be like, Scott, you can leave the class. Well, you can go to the library or something, because we're going to review the test. You don't have to. And then when I went to college, the funny thing was, I was pre-med when I went to college. I thought that's what I wanted to do. And till I started taking a lot of labs, and I was like, these are boring. I don't like this. And then I realized, like, you're not going to be a very good doctor if you don't care about this stuff. So
Sure.
I thought it better to change ideas. And at the time, I just had taken a lot of math. Math was like an elective to me, because it was just easy. And I realized in college that it was different for me than others, because I think I'd taken like 6 quarters or 7 quarters of calculus there, some weird number, but I didn't drop a point the whole time. So,
Wow.
then I realized, like, oh, maybe I'm really good at this. And the funny thing is, I still don't see myself as being really good at it. I see myself as, I know how to do what it takes to get the 100.
Right.
Like,
Okay.
but if I look back on it now, I would say I don't understand it. Like, there was people in my class that understood it much better than I did. I understood how to solve the problem in front of me, which was, I wanted to get 100 on the test, but
Sure.
I didn't understand like what everything meant. Whereas like now, when I look back, that's what I wish I would have spent more time on. Worry less about the grade and worry more about understanding what you can do with things and how you can use it in life.
And what did you do, Scott, at university? What did you end up getting
I have
into?
a I I have a degree in mathematics.
Mathematics.
So
Okay.
yeah.
Was computer
So
science a thing then? Was that in
yeah, I had a
university?
minor in computer science. So I
Yeah.
had a degree and then a minor in computer science. And I think if I really were to say what I should have done physics. I loved physics, because it's like, physics is like the cool
Fascinating.
part of it. It's like you
Yeah.
see cool things and stuff. I don't know why I didn't, because it was right in my realm at that time, and uh, I think it's much more interesting. It was funny because they wanted me to go on to get my PhD when I graduated college, but I didn't want to, because school was obviously a lot for me. Like, everybody else was working few hours. I'm doubling that amount of hours of work to
Yeah.
get to where I was. So it was just challenging. But so I think this is a funny story. So when I graduated, I I got a job really quick out of college, because I marketed myself as like, I'm a problem solver, did all these things. And so about a year after I graduated, I decided it'd be a good idea to go back to the university and tell them how they should change their program. Because
I was
what a
happy with
pop.
that, Scott, was there?
I
Yeah,
bet
yeah,
that was well received.
no, great. You know, it was like, what a pompous kid to think that like,
Yeah.
I got this for you. So I go back and they take the meeting, which was funny in itself. And so I come back in and there's all these professors in there. I'm like in my 20s. And I'm like, I think you guys are really selling this program short. Like all you want people to be is academics. Like math is so much more than that. It's problem solving. It's, it teaches you a different way of using your mind. I was like, you can get good careers in this. You just have to focus more on like some of the more applied mathematics and where it could go. And I mean, if you want to talk about, you could have dropped a pen and crickets were just going off. It was the
I can
worst. Like,
imagine. Yeah.
these professors are looking at me like, no, you are an idiot, kid. Like, it was so embarrassing yet so funny. Like now I look back on it, I was like, first of all, who would think to do that? Like, what an idiot I was. Like, I thought I was going to change the academic world by my conversation
Sure.
with one person.
But you've
And
got a point, though, Scott. I think there's definitely that disconnect, isn't there, between education and the real world, and you were looking to kind of bridge that gap.
well, I
It's
think I was
like,
right
well,
now. Now I
yeah,
actually do think I was very
absolutely.
much
Yeah.
right because it's what everybody wants to do now. And it's
Yeah.
I definitely felt like I was vindicated later in life, but at the time my approach was not really the greatest, I think, and probably it was a little bit pompous of somebody to have that. And to me, it wasn't even like an ego thing. It was just like, oh, I got an idea. Maybe I should tell these people what my idea is. It was more just like here's an idea. I should share it with them, or else they won't know the idea.
Yeah.
Sure. What was your thinking at when you was leaving university and you was at that point, Scott? Was you thinking commercially about, right, I need to get a job, I want to make a lot of money, or was you thinking I want to make changes in the world? Where was your
So,
head at the time?
so
Was you
at the time, I think because when I changed my major to math, I think even my family was like, "Well, what are you going to do in life?" Like everybody thought I was going to do nothing. Like basically, that's what they thought. So I was like, "Well, that ain't happening." So at the time, it was more about just competing and making sure I had a job so I could prove everybody wrong. Um, and I think I spent a lot of my life trying to prove people wrong. Um, I funny backing up again when I was a younger kid, they did a report on me and they said I'd be lucky to graduate high school with the disabilities I had. And
right?
so like to me, a lot of what I've done in life is I feel like it was I didn't really realize this till I got older. Like I was always competing with myself, but I was always competing just to make it so nobody else like I did this, look, I did that. Like and it did take away a lot of the joy in life. I mean, because I was so focused on getting things done. So I missed a lot of the fun part of life that now, as I get older, I'm trying to bring that back. But, I think when I graduated college, I was more on the money side and get a job really. But that's changed a lot now. I mean,
Yeah.
now I'm much more on like, I like a company with a purpose. I like to, I mean, money's important, but it's not everything. And, I think it is important to, have something you believe in and you can attach to when you're working. Like when I worked in the medical industry, the reason I went in there is I'm a type 1 diabetic. As you can see, I have lots of fun issues. I call myself the genetic dump in my family. I'm like, any type of bad genes you can get, I luckily got them all. So,
Excellent.
so I went in there because of that, because I wanted to connect those two things and know that I was helping people with what was going on, and the fact that like it kind of helps myself in some ways, if I can help those type of things. And so now it's much different, I would say.
And what did your parents do, Scott? Were they
uh
academics or?
no, my dad has never worked for anybody in his life. He always owned his own businesses, just different kind of businesses throughout the years. And
Yeah.
he did really what he's a really hardworking guy and did really well at doing that. And my mom was a stay-at-home mom and an artist. So
Wow.
it's kind of an interesting mix. I always say I think it's a good mix because like I have that analytical mind, but I also have that creative side of me because I got both of it from both of them.
Yeah.
So like both my younger brother is is a teacher. My older brother works in the entertainment industry. So they're much more, I'm more the analytical. They're much more the like artsy
Artist.
and yeah.
And what was the
Yeah.
order that you came in? Are you the middle child? Are you the eldest, youngest?
I'm the middle. Yeah.
Middle child. Okay.
Yeah. They're
Okay.
always the best. I don't know what you guys are, but I mean, come on.
Yeah, I'm the oldest.
I'm the youngest. I'm the
Oh,
youngest.
well,
I'm the oldest. Yeah.
Well, we're even in the right order, right?
Exactly right.
Exactly. So, Scott, what was just the cultural differences in times when you was at school now comparing to your children, of where they're at, their day-to-day life? Is it because we're talking about kids that are now on their screens 24/7, they're not outside, they got communication issues, people are more lonely, disconnected, maybe physical health has decreased and things like that? Can you clearly see the differences?
Well, you also have COVID that in that realm too.
Yeah,
So that created a gap for kids as well. I would say that, it's just different. Like, I mean, when we were kids, you played outside, if you made fun of somebody, like it ended that day. Like once you went home, it was done. Now now it goes on forever. And, people, there's so much more. Now their connections are broader. Like my daughter plays competitive volleyball, and like she has friends that don't go to her school, and it's easier for them to connect with all the technology. But it's just, and they're so addicted to it. I mean, and I try to be open-minded to it because I feel like tech is important and it's a part of our lives. So it's the way the world's going. So my wife's a much better parent when it comes to technology than I am, because I'm like, well, they need it, they should do it. But it's when they're walking around like this and running into walls talking to it, it's not a great thing. Like they do need, like I can remember when I was a kid, like riding in the car and you didn't have anything, you just looked out the window, but it gave your brain that time to have an imagination. It gave your brain a time to rest and think and kind of absorb things. I don't think they ever have that time anymore where their brain is just shutting off and like just thinking about nonsense or whatever, So I think it's really different now.
Do you think you're addicted to it, Scott?
No, I don't. And the reason I don't is so I always have been heavy technology, but like I can be with it or without it. But the part I would say is I do love it. Like, so there's a difference in like an addiction and a love for it, right? So like I could not do it. Like you could take my phone away and I'd be okay. I'm not going to die from it. Would I want it? For sure. But I don't know. That's a good question. Am I addicted? I don't know. Are you guys addicted? What do you think?
Yeah, we did a whole talk on this, didn't we? And I did my screen time the other day, and it was nearly pushing 17 hours.
Oh, geez. Yeah, that's
at
a
one
lot.
point. And I was like, I
that's
didn't really notice it. But James, we've talked about even going for walks, haven't we? And then we're listening to a podcast, and it's interesting what Scott says. We didn't really get that space to think, just to not have any consumption at all. I don't know if you have that, Scott.
I totally agree. I think there's sometimes you just have to be bored. And
for sure.
We talked about this loads, that I think it's a distraction, and we're distracting ourselves from maybe the more uncomfortable thoughts that we really should be thinking about. But as soon as those start to creep in, it's like, how can I distract myself? And that's where the addiction sort of comes in, because you're then into this loop of the algorithm that's there to keep you engaged and keep you just scrolling and absorbing. You're sort of this kind of through a process almost like osmosis, that you're going up from a high concentration to a low concentration. But at the end of the day, I think it's to avoid really addressing the issues that you possibly should be looking at. But yeah, I think it can stifle creativity as well.
So for me, like, because I have a glucose monitor that tells me what my blood sugar is. It's on my phone, so I have to check it a certain amount because of that. And like, so that draws you in, but like, there's no way to avoid it really. Like, but but that does cause a problem because I'll check it and then I'll check something else, right?
What's
And
your
the other,
thing, Scott? Is it YouTube? Is it
no, I'd say
what's your
Instagram's probably the thing that I probably scroll the
Instagram
most.
Reels?
Yeah.
Is the Reels got you?
No, I just like to look through a few things and then I'm good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that gets me, and then I'll be honest, like email gets me. Like I feel like for some reason I've always felt like I gotta respond to everything like as fast as I possibly can. So
Get it
it's
out of
like,
the way. Yeah.
yeah,
Inbox
I like
zero.
I need all that chaos out of my way. But
Yeah.
you know, about a year ago, I decided that I like to challenge myself and I like to think how you can create habits. So I decided I was going to I was going to meditate for 10 minutes for 100 days. And I did that. And it really did change my way of thinking on things a lot.
Oh,
I'll say,
yeah.
because like we were saying, when you give yourself some space in your mind, try to sit still for 2 minutes and don't think about anything. It's a lot harder than you think
Hard.
it is.
It's really hard.
You
It's
have to
hard.
find in your brain like you would not believe. And what I kind of learned through doing it was like it might be one of the bigger life hacks there is out there because of this. Because if you know how to meditate and you do it enough, you have to do it a lot. I'll say that it's not something you can just do. You start to learn to control your thoughts. You start to learn to
Yeah.
control what's real and not real. You know, it's like you start a tagging system of what's coming through your brain, and it's like if you do it enough and you stay to it, which I will say I'm not the best at staying to things, is you can start to get to a point where like anger starts approaching you, like that's anger coming, like I can address that right now, you know. And it's a real cheat in life that like, and I thought it was just crap, to be honest. I thought it was like, who does this stuff? This is hokey pokey stuff. I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
But I don't like to say things like that unless I try it. So it's like when I tried it, it really changed my mind about how to do it and to give your brain space and how valuable that really is.
Yeah.
I've
They say it's
made it a
hard for a guy
non-negotiable, Scott. So for me in the morning, it's a non-negotiable. I kind
that's
of
awesome.
I feel off in the day if I haven't done, and it can only be, 5, 10, 15 minutes. Sometimes I do a longer one depending, but I don't force myself into it, but invariably it will be like a 10-minute, and maybe I'll have one that I can listen, like Calm, for example.
Yeah, that's what I
or
do.
Headspace. So, it's so easy just to kind of, and there's Jeff there with his little 10-minute bite-sized kind of daily thing. And that just kind of gets me into the flow. So sometimes I'll just sit and I won't have anything. And it all depends, like I said, on the day. So, but again, this is another data point, isn't it? That your behaviors are being monitored by these apps. They know what time in the morning you switch into it, which particular meditations you're listening to, for how long you're listening to it. So kind of brings us back to the data element that all of this is being collated, and we're being listened to right now, immaterial of what we think a device is there sitting listening. If you've got an Alexa there, or you're talking to Siri, whatever. So all of this data is out there in the ether that's being collated. And it knows us better than we know ourselves, because subliminally you're going through these motions and activities and emotional behaviors. And it will say, well, did you know that at 10 o'clock you were doing this? And you were like, no, I didn't know I was doing that.
So like the predictive element of it, obviously part of my career, we've done that, has been able to predict what people are going to do. And it actually like blows my mind still to this day. Like, and I've been doing this forever. I've been doing this since I got out of college, and it's just amazing that you can predict what people are going to do before the person knows they're going to do it. Like, it's really crazy. Like, and
like
with
Minority Report.
Yeah,
stuff,
and it's high percent accuracy too, which is crazy.
Yeah. And that takes us back really, Scott, to how did you start getting into the data and analytics realm? And it's become a bit of a buzzword as well, data. Can you sort of just tell us in layman's terms what that is? Because in my mind, it's everything can be data, can't it? How do you see it?
So I've been honestly in it since I graduated college. When I graduated college, I worked at a bank, and I got the opportunity to do some cool things with like predicting fraud charges, predicting fraud elements. So it was but at the time, like the funny thing was at that time, those type of jobs weren't really jobs. Like, and I know that sounds weird, but like nobody knew what my first 3 jobs at college, I would say nobody knew what to do with me. It was like,
Mm.
you can have this job, but we don't know what to call you. We don't know what you are, but you add value to the company. So you just go do it. And then it started becoming, you started hearing the terms data. Like data scientists didn't even exist until, I mean, it existed, but not really as a career for, I mean, I would say probably it started 7, 8 years ago, really, where it
Yeah,
started getting
very new.
momentum, you know? And I would argue now it's just a generalized term, even like I would say a lot of things you're going to start seeing those terms go away and more specializations come into it. But data to me has always been a tool. It's just an element of I look at everything as like, how do you solve problems? Data is your toolbox to solve that problem. You can use data to solve problems and answer questions, right? So it's a way to get actionable things to do based on what is happening. So it's information, obviously, because like, you can look at reports, which is really just information, and it's predictive, and it's ways that you can solve problems is really the way I look at it.
Yeah. And what is some sort of key metrics when you're going into like a big company? Do they have like these set things that you're going to collect data on, or do you look at obscure things as well?
So most companies will have, the financial side of the business is obviously they're looking
Yeah.
at metrics like revenue, cost, but like when it's other things outside of that, a lot of times they know what they're looking for, but a lot of times they don't. So a lot of times that is my job to come in and figure out how to use the data, what to do with it, where you can find answers to questions, or think of new ways of using it. Like, a lot of times people have customer databases, but they're not doing a lot with it. Like to say, like, are these type of customers similar? And if you went after them, could you get more business based on those types of customers? Or, is this area better, or is the pricing better because of different areas and locations? There's always, is our product more effective in these areas with these type of customers? Why isn't it the same with these type of customers? And data can answer a lot of those questions if you really look into it. And I think a lot of times people get overwhelmed by data too. And at the root of it, it should be fairly easy. If you ask the right question, you should be able to find an answer. The problem, I actually say data is less the problem. Well, quality of data is a problem for everybody. But the real problem to me is really more on the business side of it, is knowing what the right question to ask is and asking the question. I'm always amazed when I work for like executive level people that you have all this data and you're making decisions without it. Like, that's crazy to me. Like, you're sitting on a pile of information where you could get an answer and you're not even asking. Like, I would be asking all day, every day if I had that, because it makes my decisions more educated.
Do you think it's an ego thing, Scott? Do you think maybe it's that sort of feeling like, maybe I'm not relevant if I'm just reliant on the data, that I'm not using my skills and my experience to formulate a decision and to take the business in a particular way? If you're sort of saying, well, I'm reliant on the data, that kind of takes you out of the equation. But like you said, it comes down to the quality of the questions that you're asking, doesn't it? It's like ChatGPT, that it's fundamentally inert. It's this entity that exists, but until somebody comes into it and puts the prompts in and asks the right questions in the right way and sets up those parameters, that it's just a thing, isn't it? It's this ethereal entity.
I would say this: ChatGPT believes it's always right. I mean, you're putting in something, it's always. I don't believe I'm always right. So there's one difference. If I'm providing you information, I'm providing you the question you ask. I'm looking for that information and providing it. But there could be context which a leader knows that I don't know. Because without context, numbers don't really mean anything. They're just numbers, right? So like if you're a leader, I would say like I wouldn't worry about it being so much like you're not relevant. You're still very relevant. You just need to use that to be a smarter, make better decisions and have more information. It's like I don't want half the story. I want the full story to make the decision. And I I, I really do think that people shouldn't be scared of it. It's just another thing that can help you out and make better decisions.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
that's
I
got me
agree.
thinking about the sort of Blockbuster Video Netflix scenario. If you was providing data for Blockbuster, they would have said, "Look, what we're doing's working very well."
Yeah,
But they didn't see what was around the
that's
corner,
Coming
right.
did
over the
they?
horizon. Mm.
And
So
that's
then,
where context matters. And like, even if you asked ChatGPT at the time, it wouldn't have known either because the existence of streaming didn't really exist. So like
yeah,
it, that's what I'm saying, where context and market dynamics matter so much that like it's really hard to just throw out an answer and be like, I'm right, because one thing I used to say as data scientists, a lot of times people think they have a high ego. It's not that they think they have a high ego. It's when they go to have a conversation with somebody, they are right more than often than not because they have information to support it. Most
yeah.
people come to a business conversation, they come with opinions, not facts. Data scientists are coming with facts. So yeah, we would think we were right.
Yeah.
And what would you see the biggest challenges being within companies? It's sort of small, medium, and large when it comes to data.
There's quality of data is a huge problem, and then education of data literacy is very low at most
Mm,
companies, and they don't really know what to do with it, and they don't really know the value of it. So a lot of times you're running into barriers, begging for money to get things done that need to be done. And like data governance is a good example. I'm like, I understand data governance. I know you need it. It is like, do I love it? No, because it's a guardrail for me. So obviously, if I didn't have it, I could do whatever I wanted. But I do know the importance of it. So data governance and master data management are where you get clean data and you get good data. Most companies, almost every company I've worked at, unless they started that from the beginning of the process, they want to retroactive do it. And when you retroactive do it, it's really hard. It's one of the harder things to do because everybody's like, what's the ROI on this return on investment? And it's probably next to nothing for a long time. The value goes to the data people, and the value is, but it's a cost of doing business. It's like you have a security team because you value security. Data governance is one of those things you just have to have, but nobody wants it, and nobody wants to spend the money for it until they either get an audit finding or something bad happens in the market. Otherwise, they
mm.
don't care.
Yeah.
And what does good, clean data mean? Does that mean like Mary's
Good
died
question.
now and she's not on the system anymore, type
That
of thing?
that's a good example, actually. I was recently talking to a company, and they had sent out a bunch of stuff to dead people, and it wasn't a good look. So
Yeah.
that's a good example. Addresses, customer names, like having 20 versions of one customer's name. And a lot of these things are really easy to fix, but the problem is most people think it's the data or IT's group job to fix it. It's actually the business's job to fix it. They need to
Mm.
fix it on the front end, on the processing side. We can retroactive fix it for you, but there's no point in retroactive fixing it unless you're going to fix the process because it'd be clean for one day otherwise.
Yeah. And going from paper to computers, obviously, this is type of thing, maybe what Dooge is doing with the, I guess, where you're seeing people, there's a lot of paperwork underground, isn't there, coming out? So I guess, is
Yeah,
that
well,
part of cleaning data?
it could be, I guess. I don't know.
We don't want to get political.
Yeah.
Can't possibly comment on that. That's,
Won't
let's
comment
not go
on
there.
that. But in terms
Yeah.
of the next stage, Scott, how does something like what is AI? We know it's artificial intelligence and large language models. What is the implications for AI on data and analytics?
I mean, it's pretty huge because, I mean, really, if you think about it, AI is derived from data. So data is actually probably the most important thing in AI, because it's what it uses to make its decisions, it's what it uses to process things, to figure things out. I mean, it's really like it's statistics. I mean, that's really what a lot of this is statistically. It's saying, like, a large language model is saying, what's the percentage that the next word based on the previous words are going to be this. So it's a huge part of it, and that's why you'll start to see more people care about clean data, good data, because AI won't be that good if you give it bad data, And I think you're going to start to. I think one of the things that is really important to see is now AI is starting to verge into where it can start actually making decisions and taking actions, and that's agentic AI. I think that's going to be a really big thing, because you could do things like, say you had data coming in from every language in the world, right? Well, instead of having to write a program to say which language is this, which language is that, it can actually take it in, recognize the language, translate it, and put it in a new column. Like, you used to not, that would be really hard to do in the past. Now it's super easy.
Yeah.
It starts to bring into question, Scott, doesn't it, in terms of what sentience is, in respect of if it can start thinking and acting for itself. Like I was saying, that it's the quality of the prompts that you're putting in, but if it gets to the stage where actually it's starting to implement things, thinking in itself, it's like, well, it's preempting what your next question is going to be and doing it before you've asked it. So that's the logical step, that this would be the next thing that this person is going to ask. So I'm going to do it anyway, or I'm going to implement it, or even give them a suggestion.
I was wondering, is it thinking, or is it really thinking? Because to me, it kind of goes to the point where it's like, it's still held within the bounds of what you programmed it to do. But I get your point. Like, it could go past that.
Yeah.
But we're not too sure yet. And in terms of sort of bigger perspective stuff, Scott, what do you see the implications of the AI in the workplace being? Are you seeing job displacement? Are you seeing basically every employee's on steroids type of thing? Or
I wish. I don't wish for job displacement, but it'd be cool to have everybody on steroids. And
that's what makes you got hyper productive employees. Is that how it's going? How big is this, Scott? Is this like an AI fad of everyone's using the word, or is the hype real?
So I find it funny, because I used to always think, like, I work at these big companies, and like, I mean, all they talk about is AI, AI, AI. And then so I started feeling like we were behind all the time. I was like, God, I'm losing the race. And then you go talk to other companies, and you start to realize, like, no, we're all losing the race, because nobody really knows exactly what to do. Yes, there is some companies that are ahead of the game, some behind, but I would say I think a lot of times people are saying the word and they just want to use it, but they're trying to pound it into solutions. Like, it's not the answer to every problem. And I really do believe that, like, there's a lot of ways you can solve problems that aren't AI, and they're just as good. And I think, but AI does have its purpose and point. Now, in the work world, like, it can make life so much easier. Like, little things like writing job descriptions. I hate writing job descriptions. Like, it takes forever. And now I can just put a prompt in and get one in seconds that's actually better than anything I would ever write.
2%,
so like, little things like that are so great. Like, analyzing resumes, to comparing them to job descriptions, like, easy now. Like, there's so many things. I mean, I use it a lot during the day, so I'm probably not the best example. Like, I use it a lot, because, like I said, with being dyslexic, like, it's made I feel like I'm a master writer now. Like, it's leveled the playing field for me so much that it's like, I can't even put into words how great it is for me. Like, I never thought I would be at this point in this world where I could, like, you write the way it writes. Because I would say before it, a lot of times I just wrote very like bullet point type emails. Like, here's the facts, no real emotion or anything to it, because the less I wrote, the better it was for me. Now I can write whatever. I just get guided what to write, and I'm there. And you know, I was a big embracer of Grammarly when it came out, which is basically an early form of AI, and I thought that was the greatest thing in the world. But now it's like on like Copilot and things like that make it like even better. But you know, even doing data analysis, like you can do quick analysis, you can throw numbers into a chat GPT or anything and ask it to do some quick analysis. And a lot of times it's better than what humans would do. Not always, but there is times. I can remember I worked for a drug company, and we had a problem, and somebody sent it to me. I couldn't figure out what was going wrong, what the answer was. And I threw the data in an LLM, and it came out and gave me a bunch of scenarios. Like, I basically told it to profile the data, look for where if one variable affects the other. And I ran through it, and it gave me the answer. And then I called the person that sent it to me. I said, "Is this what's wrong?" And they were like, "Yeah." And I was like, "Oh my God, that's unbelievable." Like,
it's crazy, isn't it?
but I will say, I think things like coding and stuff will go away. I don't think you'll see as much software development in that way. But what I do believe is that job will never go away, because just because like, if say you're not good at, say you're like a person who writes books, you're probably not good at writing software, and I'm a person who writes software. Even if we go to prompt to write a program, I'm going to be able to write it better than you are, because I'll know how to prompt and get through it correctly and then troubleshoot, right? So it's a way of thinking that'll still be there. You'll just be able to do it faster and easier, right? Like, there's no point in writing huge things of code if you don't have to.
100%. No,
I mean, I had this idea that perhaps, Scott, that it would be the situation where, you know, for example, like app development, for example, you could just basically say what it is that you want the app to do, and it will take all of that and then transcribe it into, you know, the code. So say, well, I don't know what the code is to do it. I don't know how to create this, but I know what the concept, I conceptually know what it is that I'm trying to achieve with this app. So I give a very detailed description. I could probably even, well, I would use ChatGPT to give me that description. Then I then tell him, okay, so create the app. Boom. And it's done. Yeah. Within seconds.
Yeah. I mean, I did a test on that. I wanted to see if I could take a language that I didn't know how to program in and program something in it. So I did this web app, and it took me basically about 3 hours to get it done. But I did it, and it's like, I could have never done it otherwise. Like, there's no humanly possible way I could have done it. Like, I would have struggled, and you can get through it. And I think what you're saying is correct, but I think you could give it the idea and it would go and do it and program it and get it there. But you still have to, the thing is I think that sometimes, like, you don't think about certain things if you don't have that type of like programming mindset. Like, what if this happens? Then what happens to it? Like, what if somebody enters in, you know, these words and it's not used to taking those words? Then what happens? You know, like, if you don't program them in, it's just going to come back with an error message. But you might say, like, have an error prompt that says, like, hey, you can't put this type of input in there, you need to change it. So I think there is always that part of it. But you're right, it just, the problem is it devalues that job more, which stinks for that.
It does, unfortunately. And just listening to what you're saying, it was like you can almost say, well, actually, okay, so let's go through some scenarios here. What could be the problems that occur from this particular thing? If I go down that route, what are the potential? And they'll head those off at the pass. So be able to scrape the internet and say, well, actually, in this scenario, this potentially would be the problem. These are the issues, and this is how to solve it.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Yeah.
You know.
And like we said with the data side, Scott, what I'm interested in as well is predictive capabilities, because James and I have done personality testing in the past. We did 2 personality tests with James, and we put into the prompt about his life story. And then I said to the ChatGPT, on this data, taking into account personality tests and his life history, what job would his wife do? And it got it right
For
on the
real?
first. It said nurse, and it was spot on the first go.
Wow.
What is that?
That was a
would
lucky
be,
guess. It was a
yeah, I
lucky
don't
guess.
know. That's insane. Well, unless, I mean, not to be, what if it has access to the web, it could find his name, his wife, and correlate that back.
Maybe that would
Yeah,
be the
that's
only thing. Do you
conspiracy
think, what would it
theory
have
101
scraped?
right there,
Would it have
isn't it?
Yeah.
scraped Facebook? I don't know.
Wow.
I mean, like they do it now. I mean, most of the LLMs scrape now. I mean, you can even set
Yeah.
them to scrape. So, but that's
Could be.
pretty crazy. Like with no information about her, what would she
Yeah.
do? Yeah, that's
Yeah, because if you think about it, like personality testing, it's more about your, patterns, isn't it? Coping mechanism, patterns of play. So if you can understand someone's patterns and behaviors, then maybe there's a correlation between the partner you attract and the type of jobs they choose.
could be.
What I'm interested in, Scott, is like, what is the concept of like big data? Is that about predictive capabilities?
Yeah, I mean, I think why else would you want all the data? You want it to predict things, but like, but I'll give you an example like where it's good. For example, like in manufacturing, I need to predict when I need to do maintenance on my, machines.
Yeah.
Predict plant maintenance is a huge thing and it's very useful. It causes you to have to shut down less. It causes you to have less downtime and like those type of things are huge. So yes, data is using to predict things, but I think it's what you're predicting and how you're predicting it too, and how accurate you can be in predicting it. Like it's responsible. You got to be responsible when you do these things. You can't just make like wild claims and go like, "Well, I have the data, so this is what's going to happen," you know. Because I agree with you that like it's it is scary sometimes when you think companies are taking all your data for everything you do because everything we do has a data point to it just about now. But being somebody who's had access to just about every piece of data of a human being in my life, like I've seen everything, and like everybody thinks like everybody has nefarious kind about it. I could care less about it, to be honest with you. Like, and
Exactly.
I've seen just about everything you could see about somebody, and like it really to me it's more interesting. I look at it as like a widget. Like each person is just a widget to me, but what am I trying to predict based on those widgets? But the individual person's name, I don't care. I really don't care at all. And like their own personal life, I don't care. It's just not interesting. Yes, it's interesting when you're 20 something and you're like, I got access to everybody's salary. I should look that up.
Yeah.
Yeah, you stay for about 5 minutes and then you realize
Yeah.
like,
That is,
okay, now I know it, but what do I do with it? Like
Sure.
it gives me nothing.
yeah.
Yeah. And is there something that you've changed your mind on, Scott? Like a belief that you've had that you thought was correct that now you're thinking, maybe I'm not so sure.
I mean, I think I might have underestimated the power of data a little bit than what I thought, because I think it is like we were just talking about. I think you could do a lot of bad things with it, and I think there is that possibility. And I think that people, the protection of data at companies is very important, way more important than I ever thought. Like, because what people do with it when they get it can cause so much chaos for a human being. They can mess up their credit, they can steal money, they can steal their lives. Like stealing somebody's life is like pretty big deal. And like I think um, we underestimate that a little bit sometimes. I do, at least, because I feel like I'm around it so much that I forget that like it's still a very important asset to make sure it's protected. And maybe in today's world, one of the most important assets you have as a corporation. Everybody's putting
Yeah.
sensors and cameras everywhere. So it's like I worked in manufacturing early on, and now I'm back in manufacturing. When I started manufacturing, there was no sensors on anything. Now it's like there's sensors on every part of the plant. So you're collecting information from everything, you know, and like that's different, right? That's not the way businesses ran in the past. And now everything's about collecting data. Data is actually an asset. Like you can sell data. Like data is more important, you know. I mean, businesses make a lot of money off of data.
100%.
For marketing
There's huge
purposes
value in
and stuff.
Data.
Yeah.
Huge
I
value.
mean,
Huge value.
talking about Instagram, like that thing is amazing how good their algorithm is. Like it pulls up stuff you're like, it knows like not only that you'll buy it, but also that it's like in the price range of what you would spend. It's like right on that edge of like, I don't know if I want this. It's just that. Okay, I'm gonna get it,
Yeah.
you know? Like it kills me every
yeah.
time. I buy so much stuff off of Instagram because like I'm like, it's like
Interesting.
they know me, and I know they do. So it's
Yeah.
And if you watch that video for just a split second too long, then they go, right, that's what he's interested in. So we're going to give him more of that. Let's give him more of that. And just keep that pumping out, that great content. Keep you in that loop. Keep you feeling like you're needing to buy something.
Yeah. And what I'm interested. Sorry, go for it, Scott.
No, I was just gonna say it'd be interesting to look if you looked at like different income brackets of people and see like what type of ads come, because I swear they nail it on the pricing every time. I'm like
It's the sweet
just,
spot.
Yeah, and it's right there where it's like if you went up $10, I would say no, but you're right there. How do you do that? Drives me crazy.
Yeah, those algorithms are so powerful, aren't they, to be honest?
It's clever.
I was just thinking on a macro level, Scott, your views on things like the future of capitalism, how business models are going to evolve, the biggest challenges humans face now, potentially with job displacement, house prices, inflation. Where do you see
Tariffs.
for your children tariffs? Yeah. Where do you see that going, and how do you sort of equip your children?
I do worry about it, but I don't know. I have a pretty positive outlook on the world, and I feel like the world always balances itself somehow. Like, I mean, if you really think about it, even in America, like how many, like everybody's like, oh, this president's gonna ruin it. This president's gonna ruin it. And like the reality of it is it doesn't like you rarely is it ruining that much for each individual person. Like it doesn't really happen that way. There's enough checks and balances. But I do think that you're gonna see a change in the jobs and a change in the way we work. And it might be, in some ways, it might be a better thing. A lot of the mundane stuff that we have to do, we might not have to do anymore. Maybe we become more of a world where, like, I feel like all we do is work. Maybe we don't have to work as much. You know what I mean? Like, and we could still generate revenue and be okay in life. Like, it would be nice to be able to enjoy your family and life more than just working. And I'm hoping that that's where it goes more so. And, you know, I think capitalism is an important thing. Like, that's why we have innovation. That's why you have great doctors. That's why they're all striving to achieve something and get, you know, that achievement sometimes comes in the form of money. That's kind of the status way of doing it. And so I think that right now is a cool time that, you know, I heard something, and I'm sure you guys have heard it, that the AI is like the biggest thing since the Industrial Revolution. And I think it's like, how cool is it to be around like during that time and get to see how the world changes and the thing. Like there is aspects that I worry about. Like I worry a little bit of like kids, what they learn and how they have to learn. Like, do you really need to learn anything? I can just type it into something and get the answer, right? Like I don't have to write a paper. I can just have it write the paper for me. And I worry sometimes that like, I think of back when I was in math, like you could use a calculator to solve everything just about, but do you know why and how it works? The why and how does actually matter on a lot of things. And like, I'm worried that we're not going to understand the why and how, and that's going to be a detriment in society more than anything.
And it's, I think, potentially relinquishing agency, Scott, as well. It's that thing of that participation, the human interaction with this thing that you sort of advocate, or you're abdicating it to an entity outside of our control potentially. So
That
I
as well.
think, you know, when you're looking at these sorts of things, it's like, well, interestingly, going to the calculator that you were saying, because I was literally just thinking about, you know, when I was doing a math equation. John and I are not particularly good at maths, John. I think you'd agree, mate. But it's like doing something on a calculator. You take that element out of self, of actually understanding what the calculator gave me the number. So I don't know. So you hadn't actually, you know, engaged in the process of finding that out. You just tapped some numbers in and pressed equals, and it gave you that response. So I guess this is kind of like on a grander scale with AI. But I was talking to somebody just yesterday, and they were at a dinner party talking about AI, and one particular guy said, "Well, what are you going to do with all that time?" It's like, well, we're so busy doing stuff that we don't necessarily need to be doing, that the creativity that can come out of that is exponential, isn't it? If you're not being bogged down with the mundanities, it's like, you know, when the Model T Ford took over from the horse and cart, people were saying, what's going to happen to all the horses?
So in a positive aspect from that, like maybe people end up creating new, cooler things and better things for the world because they have time to do it, because they have space, which kind of goes back to what we were talking about earlier. How do you get that space, you know? And like maybe that declutters it some, which is a great way to think about it. I mean, I hope that's the way it goes. You know, there's a lot of other ways it could go.
Yeah, it's hard to predict, isn't it, Scott? But in terms of, I'm interested for sort of a thought experiment. If I gave you, you know, endless billions of pounds now or dollars, what would you be doing? Like money's not a thing for you anymore. You can't invest it. You can't do anything. You can have access to anything you want. What would you do?
So for me, it would probably, I would want to do it in the medical area. I would want to solve medical problems, because I feel like the health of human people is like a great thing to work at. And like, there's so many problems there, you know, like, I mean, obviously if you could cure cancer, imagine the lives that would change of people. Like something like that would be, if I had unlimited funds, yeah, I would use technology like a madman. I would use AI. I would have supercomputers beyond supercomputers, because like, I think there is some ways that, like, I was in a course and we were looking at medical imaging and AI. It's so cool, like how it can, like it's finding cancer before a doctor is finding it. It's not to say the doctor's not doing the right job. It might be impossible for the doctor to find it at that stage, but it can. And like, why not do more of that? You know, those type of things are incredible. But to get to that point, what people don't understand is, to get to the point where it can do that, you have to go through hundreds of thousands of images with doctors to validate that it is something. So it's like, it's not displacing the doctor. It's actually, you know, helping to get the doctors teaching it in a lot of ways. It just gets better and better at it, you know? So I think if I had money, that's where I would go. Obviously, saying I was a type 1 diabetic, I would obviously love to cure diabetes as well. That would be a good one. So,
and that's what DeepMind are doing now, aren't they? Trying to decode a lot of the protein, is it AlphaFold, where they're doing a lot of the AI stuff to decode stuff, which is just incredible. But in terms of when you solve problems, Scott, do you think there's a contradiction between business and solving problems and managing symptoms? Because managing symptoms is lucrative, whereas when we start solving problems in society, do we get rid of businesses?
So I actually, it's a good question, because I look at diabetes as a good example of that, right? Like, you can live with diabetes and be fine. Like, you know, there's type 1 and type 2. I'm type 1, so my pancreas doesn't work, so I don't really have a choice. But if you solve the problem, there's so many businesses tied to it. It's not just like a business, it's businesses, and there's a whole chain of them making money off it. So I do wonder sometimes if they're like, is it really worth investing solving that problem? I think it's horrible of a society if that's the way we're going, because like, that's just it. I mean, I do believe that's partially true. So, but I do believe that's horrible that that would be the case, because, you know, it's like, you know, with the like Ozempics and Wegovy's, the GLP-1 type drugs, like it
Mm.
could eradicate type 2 diabetes. Like it
Yeah.
could get rid of it. But then you just transfer the cost to something else, right? Like
That's what we've talked about, inverse incentive structures, which don't make sense with the onset of technological advancement. It doesn't quite correlate. It seems very lucrative to have management of symptoms across the board in many areas. As soon as you actually think first principles problem solving,
yeah.
it gets a little bit sticky, doesn't it? A bit
Because
strange in terms of the business model.
if you're problem solving, you're not really solving. You didn't solve the problem, right? Like at the end of the day, you didn't. If
Exactly.
you're trying to cure something and you solve all these other things, you didn't solve it. Like you still didn't solve it.
Sure.
Yeah, you can pat yourself on the back for what you did, but like you didn't solve the problem.
Mm.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's what it'd be interesting to see how these corporates evolve, because I guess when you start really solving problems, you do have to start changing direction, don't you?
Well, I mean, you're
So
always making a hypothesis and like you're not always right. So like you try, I mean, that's kind of the game of solving problems, right? Like you try different methods to solve it. There's no one right way.
yeah,
So you go at it so many different ways until maybe you hit it on the head. I've always thought it would be cool though, like for some things, like, I know they have them like where you have like the think tanks and type things like that. But if you did it a little bit more broad type of group of people, like not like I think think tanks these days are mostly just really smart people. But
yeah.
what if you didn't take really smart people always? You just took a big
Put
group of
John and
different people.
James in there
Yeah,
instead.
Yeah,
exactly.
tuck me
John,
in
James, and
for good
Scott are
measure.
in there, and yeah, if you could do that, you might actually be able to solve more problems because I think having different viewpoints and different perspectives, sometimes solving a problem is an accident that you solved it just by somebody saying one word that gets you
Yeah,
there. And like
Yeah,
I've always
I
wondered if they
agree.
did something like that, if you would make more progress in solving things in different ways. Because we seem to always go after it the same way. If you're an academic really smart or your industry really smart, then we'll allow you to solve the problem.
yeah,
I think it's
But
fear-based, Scott. Personally, I think there's a lot of fear there. It's like you don't want to cock it up. You really
yeah,
don't want to make a mistake. And I think it's that we've got to go to an expert and then we'll, take that word as being gospel, and we're not going to question it because they are the expert. And there you go. So
I think
we'll
that
be very happy with that. But actually,
I
you
think
get
the
a
work.
room full of monkeys. You get enough monkeys together, they can write the works of Shakespeare, right?
Yeah, I mean, you look at like squirrels, like they figure out how to get the food. It just takes them a lot of tries to get it, but they'll
yeah,
figure out how to get there. And it's like I always feel like it's you know, people are too afraid of failing and look at failing as a bad thing. Failing's
Mm,
awesome. Like I love
yeah,
failing because if I fail, I learn something from it and I move on from it and I take what I learned. And like I always tell my daughter, like, and she started driving recently and she was like, uh, she had an accident because as they do when they first get cars. And I made her pay for it. And she was like, "Why are you making me pay for it?" I was like, "Because you made a mistake. I'm not mad, but if I make you pay for it, you every time you back up, you're gonna realize I need to
you'd be
look,
switched on. Yeah, you'd be
mm,
more
right." And
alert. Yeah,
yeah.
and that's what I always think to myself. I learned way like we all do great stuff and right stuff majority of the day, but if you don't forget the wrong stuff. So like doing stuff
yeah,
wrong is such a powerful way of learning. So like I think it's funny that people fear it so much. It's like if you're making mistakes that aren't hurting human beings, aren't hurting the world, like make all the mistakes you want.
Yeah.
that's a good point, Scott. It reminds me of
Most powerful
like
way of
talking about
learning.
leadership. So I'm just interested, Scott, what it's like going from a technical person to going into leadership roles. What is it like to lead people? What have you learned about leadership? Is
It's
it
hard
about
at first.
emotion or is it about data?
It's hard at first, I'll say that, because like you have this fear naturally of losing your skill sets and losing yourself in some ways because
Yeah,
when you're a technical person, a lot of yourself is the technical work you do, and you get a real thrill out of it. So I would say, one thing I would say is management and leadership isn't for everybody, and you shouldn't go into it unless you are okay giving up some things to do new things. But what I will say is, like, it's very rewarding because you have the honor of and the privilege of having people work for you that you can guide and teach and watch them grow as people and do better things than you ever did. And you know, I don't take that. I think the biggest mistake people make is they take it lightly. If you think about it, I hold people's lives in my hand, and that's crazy.
Yeah.
I there's no reason I should be the chosen one to do that. I think it's insane that people are allowed to do that, including myself. But you need to take it seriously because of that, right? So you want to do what's right for people. But what I'll tell you is that for me, it's just I moved from solving problems, maybe technology, to solving people problems. So it's still problem solving. It's just different types of problems, and I actually love it. Like, understanding people is way harder than understanding data in a lot of ways. Like, you know,
Yeah.
They're
again, like,
unpredictable.
yeah, they're so unpredictable, and you learn so much more of uh, like how to interact with people, how to you know, like, I think one of the biggest mistakes people make when they first manage is they want everybody to be them, and that
Yeah.
you can't expect that. Everybody's different. Everybody needs to do things differently, and you need to, like, when you manage people, you treat each person you manage different, not the same, because they are different people and they need different things from you. Not everybody
Mm,
needs the same thing. So I would say the EQ side of it is much more important than the data side of it when it comes to this. I
yeah,
would say if you don't have a good EQ, you ain't gonna
Struggle.
last long in this one, you know. And I
I
also
was.
I think a lot of people take management jobs for power. That's another big mistake. I think power is not something you should strive for. You should strive for uh, making others great. And you know, I always say, like, when you're a manager, you're no longer the hero. You don't need to be the hero. The heroes are the ones that are working for you, and you will become a hero if they are heroes.
Yeah.
So, like,
Yeah,
you have to rely on others, you know, and like have faith in them and trust, and um you're giving up a lot. So it's letting go of a lot of control and things like that. And if you can't let go of the control, I would say don't do it because it's going to be bad.
yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
it's
I
going to
know
be
I'm
really bad.
getting a lot of self-awareness from you, Scott. I think you have that
But
kind of, you've possibly done some work, but you that kind of dissolution of the ego and making sure that it's not you as the center of things, that everybody else is, core to that. That I think this is kind of what I'm getting really. It's and reminds me of the sort of Joseph Campbell hero's journey that you're sort of describing, and you're sort of coming in as the guide as opposed to the sort of the be all and the end all, but that you're there kind of champion everybody else to help them to see the qualities that they have. Everybody has the
sure.
qualities, but they don't necessarily see it in themselves. So it's how you can kind of step in and,
Yeah.
allow them to grow into that position, knowing that you've got their back, I think is another thing. And just
Yeah.
thinking back to what we said
Thank you.
right at the start of that kind of, it's not always about monetary gain. I think it's people feel valued and heard, and that they are shown what the company ethos is and what the mission statement is, and that they can get on board with that. It's the storytelling, I think, that's really important. Would you agree?
Yes. Yeah. I mean, I think, thank you for that. I think it's very much that. I think it's also like when you manage people, I think like I'm a very transparent person, and a lot of times I call BS when I see BS. I don't really hide it. Even if it's the company I'm supposed to take the company line, I'm not that guy and I never will be. I don't want to
Mm,
be. Um, I want to be honest and true to myself because if I were to get fired for being that, I'd be okay with it. You know what I mean? At least I did what I was supposed to do, did it right. I think so many people try to tote lines and play politics and stuff, and you don't have to. You can just be honest with each other and get to the answer of it. It's like when you're doing a negotiation with somebody, it's like, why does it have to go back and forth 20 times? Why can't we just sit down in a room and say, I'm going to be able, this is the most I can pay. Like, that's all I can do. What's the most you can cut? Like, you know, like, let's just get there instead of doing this BS game where we posture, we tell you things, you tell us things. It's such a waste of time. And I just don't, you know, a lot of people say like, oh, you have a very good self-awareness. And to me, it's just logic. Like, I don't know. Like, I just look at things very simple and logically. Like, I don't want to hurt somebody. I don't want to do the wrong thing, but they also have to do the right thing. Like, you know, people get let go because a lot of times because they had a choice to do the right thing and they didn't, you know, like, and we all have choices in everything we do. And I think you have to be aware of that. You know, it's,
definitely,
it's an interesting world, you know, out there. And I think that like, you can learn so much every day if you actually pay attention to what's going on around you.
Yeah, I think it's
100%.
listening and asking the right questions, isn't it?
That's I love that. Like, questions is, I have a presentation that I've done for years on just the importance of asking questions. Because there's actually this weird thing about it. Like, as kids, we're taught not to ask questions.
That's correct. Yeah.
And it's so you get to the time you get to adults, like, you actually are scared to ask questions. I unfortunately didn't have the ability to not ask questions because of some of the learning challenges I had. So I always had to ask questions. And again, it's awesome because I have no fear of asking questions. I don't care.
Yeah, that's what we do, ask questions all day. But Scott, I've got two more questions for you. First one, are we living in a simulation? Second one, in your 51 young years on Earth, what do you think the meaning of life is?
So I think we are not living in a simulation.
We're not.
I don't think so. No. And I don't have. I'm not real confident on that, but
it's not logical.
It's hard for me. Yeah, it's hard for me to get to that point. But you know, if I'm alive long enough to find out, I'll let you know.
Let me know first.
So, well, but you might already know. You might be running this simulation.
I'm
it was a trick. It was a trick question.
I know. See. And what's the meaning of life? So this is, me and my wife tell my kids something every day almost. We always say, be kind. And I think that's the meaning of life, to be kind and be caring. And I always tell this joke, and it's not even really a joke. Like, I've never said to myself, like, I don't want to work with that guy because he's so dang nice. I love hanging out with that guy, but I just don't want to work with him. Like, nobody ever says that. So to be able to, I think, like, if we could all just be kinder and more considerate to each other, it would be a great thing.
Scott took the blue pill, apparently.
I used to work for Scott.
No, I appreciate that, Scott. Yeah, great to speak. Oh, we could ask you questions all day, to be honest.
We could be here all day. Literally.
Yeah. I really appreciate.
I can talk forever. I'll talk about anything. I love talking.
Yeah, same as us. But no, we super appreciate you coming on. We have to do this again sometime in the future. But very interested to hear about what you're doing and how things are gonna go. So we'll watch this space. Things are changing pretty quickly, aren't they, Scott? So who knows in the next 5 years?
Well, when you guys have a full talk on simulation, I'd like to be there because I'd like to understand if I am in one. I need to start learning about it. So I appreciate it if we go deep dive on simulation. I want to be.
We'll be there. And just very quickly to finish, Scott, is there anything that John and I can help with? Is there anything that's a pressing issue for you, a burning problem that we can sort for you before we wrap up?
Let me think. No, I think I'm good. I think you guys have solved all my problems. You've given me
welcome.
You've given me therapy this morning. You know, I got it all out. I'm feeling pretty good about myself now. So it was fantastic.
Your job is done.
I've really enjoyed it. It was a great conversation.
Brilliant. Thanks everyone for watching, and we'll see you on the other side, Scott.
Yep. Thank you.
Take care. Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye, bye, bye.